Hi guys, welcome back to Geekism. My name is Jonty and today we are carrying on with our Let's Build series here in Planet Coaster, and we are finally finishing the mine train. I know it's been a little while. We built the ride a couple of episodes ago, but had a little bit of creator's block when it came to actually designing the scenery for it, so we moved away and started working on our waterfront that we'll finish in the next episode, but now we're back to finish this off. And once I got into it, I actually quite enjoyed myself. It took me a little while to sort of figure out what I wanted to do with it, but I'm actually quite happy with how it's turned out. I didn't want to just go sort of really traditional mine train, in the fact that it was just sort of a track along mines, I guess. So instead I've kind of gone for an oil rig type look, and also there's some really nice oil scenery, sort of, you know, oil pumps and cogs and oil spurts and stuff that we probably wouldn't have used in the Western theme if we hadn't used them in this ride, because we're kind of coming to the end of the Western theme now, apart from one more flat ride that we're going to add. We're near enough there, so I really wanted to use those pieces, so we've kind of gone for an oil rig type theme, but there's also a few different scenes as well as we go through. I've done it very similar to how I did the Rapids ride there, in that I try and sort of tell a bit of a story as we're going through the ride, and each sort of area of the ride has a different sort of theme or different sort of story being told. So that's kind of what we've tried to do. Here. Now, I apologise if there's a cut in a moment where it looks like I'm building the same pieces twice. My game rarely crashes. It's crashed 3 times so far, and every single time it's been building the station for this mine train. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's just 2 pieces from the wooden when they touch or so. I don't know. I really don't know. It's a very specific use case though, but for some reason the station on here has made the game crash 3 separate times now. So this is actually sort of 4th or 5th attempt at building this station. Luckily the crash happens just after an autosave here, so I didn't actually lose that much, but I might find that as the video cuts it repeats a little bit, so I do apologise if that happens. I tried here to do something I've not really done before, and that's use a couple of buildings on one in quite an extreme way. I know we did it a little bit with the saloon that you can just see in the background there by the chair swing, where we used multiple buildings to create a bit more of an interesting shape, but I've done it here as well just to give this top area of the building a bit of a different angle, and I just think it gives it a little bit more character. So I think it worked out quite well, and it's something I really recommend you try and do in your own buildings. Use multiple buildings and sort of add them together, and you know, try and get your head out of this grid idea that we've kind of had in these games for so long. Finish off with a little bit of detail. I think here is where it cuts, so it may jump to a different sort of bit of the building. Yep, there we go. So it ends up not losing much. The building itself probably ends up a little bit square on the top here, but I kind of wanted that rather than just one big roof. Kind of wanted an area that you could look up to and see some stuff, and also, you know, from our point of view playing the game, it looks a little bit more interesting as well. We run around with these wooden pieces. I've really enjoyed building in the Western theme. It's been a little tricky to try and get over the lots of browns issue, I guess. You know, there's a lot of wood here, so we've tried a little bit, not so much with this one because I think it kind of fits the theme to be quite dark and dull, but we've tried in the Western area on a whole to bring a little bit of colour to it, and the final area of the whole place, the promenade, is going to be very light and a very different sort of design to the rest of the area. Finishing off this top area here, this is all purely aesthetic. There's no buildings or anything going up here. It's just to add a little bit of interest to the top. I think my phone may have rang here, so I apologise if I'm away for a long time. If I am, I may even cut it. Yep, sorry about that. I've put a little cut in there just to get rid of the gap. I ended up having to step away to use the phone. So yeah, we finish off here. Again, I'm going back and saving it every now and again because I really don't want another crash to happen. I'm struggling to think of what to do here. In the end, I actually use a pirate piece called the Bell Tower that I don't really know. It doesn't really fit, but I just think it kind of looks quite smart, and you probably would have a bell in a sort of train station, for working train station, you would ring the bell to say that the train's coming back in. In fact, one thing I didn't do but I might do is add a trigger to the ride and see if I can get a bell sound effect to go off as it comes back into the station. That might work quite nicely. And then we finish off the exit area here with a little simple roof. Now the only thing I haven't done in this ride is the entrance, and as in the actual entrance from the path into the queue. I'm going to do it much like I did with the Ripsaw Logging Company, where the actual entrance to the ride is a separate building to the main queue. And the reason I've done that is because I'd like you guys to name this ride for me, and I've left the entrance open so that when we get to it we can add a sign there. So if you have any suggestions for a name for this ride, please pop it down in the comments. I'd maybe wait till the ride's finished, you can see the full sort of theming of it. It might give you some inspiration. But it's one thing I'm not really that great at, is naming rides, and also I thought it'd be a nice way to sort of involve you guys in the build. So if you can think of a good name for this ride, pop it down in the comments, and I'll pick the best one, or the one that has the most likes, or whatever, and we'll use that to name the ride. Some electrical pieces here, I guess they kind of don't really make sense, the wires sort of running from the oil rig, but I just thought it'd be a nice way to sort of tie in some lights, and the oil pump there. I like the fact the oil pump goes over the queue, and you have to sort of walk underneath it to queue up. I think the parts of the queue could maybe still do with a little bit more theming, but we'll probably just finish that off when we do the entrance sign, once we've got the name of the ride. And here just place some flat roof pieces to make it look a little bit dishevelled and a little bit broken, and sort of get you a little bit worried about this train that you're about to go on, and whether or not it's really safe, because that's really the theme of a mine train, is that it's a bit rickety and it sort of loses the tracks and ends up sort of doing what it wants. Found this piece in the archways. I think it's meant to be a path arch, but it looks absolutely fantastic, and it kind of saves me doing a lot of the work with the wooden beam, so I use it quite a little bit during this build, and they also act as head chopper moments. The characters, the guests even know that they're there, and they duck down, and it seems to have increased both the excitement and the fear rating a little of the ride once we've finished putting them in. So here's the first main scene. I end up working a little bit backwards on this ride. The first main scene that we're doing here is one of the main oil areas. I make these small little geysers, if that's the right word, I think it may be, and we actually turn these into oil geysers that go off as the ride goes past. It's basically the worst ever water feature. You get covered in oil going on this ride, but we've purposefully left the oil going straight up rather than going over the ride, obviously, but it's a little bit unrealistic, but they have these oil things, and I didn't really know what to do with them otherwise, so we add them there onto each of these 3 points, and then using the trigger system on the ride, we add them on to sort of explode for a couple of seconds as the ride comes back in. It just gives you that last sort of bit of excitement, where the ride itself is sort of calming down and being a bit more relaxed. That would be the moment that you can have some sound effects or special effects to keep interest there. We had a speaker there with I originally tried a siren noise. I was thinking like a wooga type noise, but unfortunately all the siren noises currently in the game are sort of sci-fi noises really, and they weren't suitable, so I ended up using an explosion sound, I think, just to kind of give it that extra oomph as the ride comes down. You can see there the oil goes off for a couple of seconds, and you'll see it again later on in the ride through and the glamour shots. So here I wanted to do something to the chain lift rather than just leave it open. I was considering boxing the whole thing in, but then I thought afterwards it might be quite nice to have it still relatively open, because you get quite a nice view to the right of the rest of the park. So purposefully left it open for that reason. I've ignored my own advice of starting a building whenever building scenery that you're going to repeat, so I've had to save this as a blueprint. By the time I'd realised what I'd done, I'd already got most of it built, so I just kind of dealt with it this time. So we end up making these sort of outcrop posts with some lights on them, just to give a bit of scenery and a bit of interest as you're heading up the track there to go into the ride. Use these oil lamps, love these things, they look great, and obviously we probably won't be using those in different areas, so we're getting the most out of them in the western area. So there we go, we save that as a blueprint. And then we can sort of copy and paste that, try to get one underneath, but because the ride's sort of curved there a little, I don't think it's really working. It takes me a little while to put these down, and a couple of them end up being a little bit higher up than the terrain. So actually go back over with the terrain tool and fix those later on as well. So here we go, select the whole thing, or try to at least. Oh, I had a really weird bug here that for some reason when I selected it, it selected the ride as well, obviously, as you would expect. But when you deselected the ride, it wouldn't deselect the station. I don't know if you can see what's going on here. I'm trying my hardest to deselect the station, it just would not happen. I think I may well come out of the game. I know I give up in the end and just duplicate the one. But yeah, it was really strange little bug. So I was going to sort of duplicate a couple of these to make it a little bit quicker, but overall it didn't take me too long to run this up the side here, and it just adds a little bit more detail, little things like that sort of really sort of make the difference between a simple ride and something that's really detailed and sort of realistic looking, I think. So it's definitely something you can try in your own builds. As we get towards the top there, oh there we go, we're just sort of filling the terrain in a little there to make them sit underneath. And as we get to the top here, I wanted to do just a small building that kind of sits just to sort of cap off the top of the roof, at the top of the chain lift even. I think that's a little thin, so I think I end up going back and making it a little thicker. Again, this is something I see quite a lot in rides. They have a sort of little cap at the top here. I don't know whether it's because it's an area where staff may have to get to at the top of the chain lift, or if it's purely an aesthetic thing. But anyway, it seemed right to have. So I end up adding a small, simple building here with a sort of flat iron roof. There we go. That's about it, I think. Oh, with a little bit more detail there. I might go over and add some more lights to this. I didn't really have a look at what this thing looks like in the dark, if I'm honest, because for the most part I play with the lighting set. But it is still quite nice to see what things look like in the dark, I think. So I may go back over those and see what it looks like. So there you go, happy enough with that. Now I start moving down the ride, and basically all the areas that aren't a sort of real set scenery area, I'm just going to place a couple of these dudes just to give a bit of an interest in the ride and a little bit of a head chopper moment. So we have a couple of those there, and again pulling the train up to them. And then here's our first kind of main scene, and it's simply an area just going into the mine that shares some of the space with the rapids. You'll see a better shot of it later on, but again we're just basically doing similar to what we did with the rapids by sort of boxing off the area with some beams. And then we also trying to pick up light where I can see what's going on here, but unfortunately because the cliffs are all up around the side of it, pretty much whatever time you set there was a shadow there, so I apologise that it's a little dark. So here we add some of the dynamite features. I couldn't find them for a while, end up searching for them, but there we go, we find the dynamite and the dynamite cases. And it's only simple scenery because you're going past so quickly at this point you don't really see what's going on. But then we had a couple more of these as head choppers, and with sort of like entry into the mine is the idea here, and we even had a couple of little signs just warning people of what's about to happen. Caution, and I think mine ahead was the other one. Yeah, mine ahead. And then we go into here. I consider placing, there's a couple of explosions that I was considering putting an explosion in here timed to the ride, but I thought it was a little bit close to the rapids. It's meant to be a relatively gentle ride, and to be honest with you, it was far too big. You'll see here I put a couple of blocks down, and I was going to put an explosion coming out of those, but you see it's absolutely huge and there's loads of dust and it didn't quite sit right, so I end up just leaving it as it is. And then just simply as we're coming out there, a few more, just to make it look more like a mine as opposed to it looking like a cave or a tunnel. Our next area here is another oiling area. Oiling? Is that the right word? I'm not too sure. Oil producing area. We use this cool wind turbine, another one of the oil rigs there. Not much space there, and also again they're moving quite quickly, so we kept the scenery relatively light here and use one of these oil spouts. And then here's our next major scene. I want to go for something a little different here, move away from the oil theme slightly, and also use some of the the cowboy animatronics, because it isn't something we've used in the whole cowboy area. And like I say, we're kind of coming to the end now, with the last area being a little bit more sort of prim and proper, so we wouldn't be able to really use them. So here I make a sort of fake mine entrance using the train tools, and there's even pieces of track that you can place down. And then at the top here we sort of set out a bandits camp, and the idea is that the bandits are coming to sort of take whatever they want from the mine. So it gives us a good opportunity to use a few of the western pieces we've not used already, and sort of tie it in with the theme of the mining and the oiling and all that sort of thing, and then use some of the, like I say, mostly used parts that we haven't used before, and also these fantastic cowboy animatronics. So Yeah, we had a minecart there, and again we do some beams to make it look like a minecart entrance. And here we actually do use some of the explosions. Again, this is the sort of place you would have the explosions, really. You know, down in the mine, and I placed some by the minecart there with some dynamite. And the idea in my head is that the cowboys shoot the dynamite and it explodes. Whether or not you would get that at the speed you're going on the ride, I don't know, but it's lights and sounds, and that's kind of what you'd want from a roller coaster. There we go, we place those down there, and then we time those to go off as the coaster goes past. And then we finish off with a few rocks to create a bit of cover for our cowboys and bandits. And then we finish off by adding those in. And that's near enough it. The last thing we do then is just add some foliage. Obviously, within the ride, we keep the foliage to sort of desert-type plants, cactuses and cacti, I should say, I guess, and the creosote bushes and things like that. Stuff that looks dead, basically, or at least stuff that seems to thrive where there's no water. I realised you can change the colour of the bandits. It's quite good, although they end up looking a little bit garish. I might end up going back and toning those colours down a little. So yeah, we finish off with some foliage. Within the ride then we use all these sort of dry roots and things like that, and then around the edge of the ride we just cap it off with some regular trees just to kind of close off the area. This is something that I take a lot from the theme parks I usually go to, which are usually in the UK, and they're very sort of forest based, so we do mostly sort of forest builds. So we fill all the areas in with trees, and that's kind of how we go in. We sort of transition in between each area, like we did with the rapids there. We sort of surround it with trees. So in the middle we just do a few light trees that look sort of withered and a bit dry. But then around the outside we just use a selection of different trees just to sort of finish off the area and just to give you a sort of line of sight block, which is what you really want. So that's pretty much the build. We're going to finish with a on-ride point of view, and then we'll do a few glamour shots. So here it is our Runaway Mine Train. Let's see what you think. So I realised that as you're riding around looking dead on, you don't be able to see much of the scenery we've done. So we add a few glamour shots in the end. Obviously, if you're actually on the ride, you'd be looking around at wherever you think there's interesting things going on, but there you go. So that's all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give us a like. It really does help out the channel. And if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.